There are moments in life when everything we thought we were collapses, when our certainties burn down and the ashes whisper, "You no longer know who you are." It's in those moments, when the mind fractures, when the heart clenches with quiet despair, that something ancient begins to move within us. Something wordless, older than our names, begins to stir. It doesn't come with comfort. It comes as a storm. Suffering is that storm. It's the crucible in which the false melts, revealing the subtle gold beneath. But most of us run from it. We numb it, label it, medicate it, deny it. We build entire civilizations around its avoidance. Comfort industries, distraction economies, shallow affirmations whispering that happiness is the only proof of success. Yet beneath all that, the soul has its own curriculum, and suffering is its teacher. Pain, in its essence, is not the enemy. It is the alchemist. It dissolves the rigid identity that cannot bear its own depth. The mystics have always known this. For them, darkness was never simply to be escaped, it was to be entered. They spoke of the dark night of the soul, not as punishment, but as purification. A descent that burns away the illusions of control and comfort until all that's left is what is truly real. We don't choose these descents. They arrive, often uninvited, through loss, betrayal, illness, heartbreak, collapse. They strip us down until there's nothing left to hold on to. And in that nakedness, something astonishing can appear. The Sufis called it fana, the annihilation of the false self. The Buddhists spoke of dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness that births awakening. Christians called it the cross before resurrection. Different words, one truth. The soul ripens in suffering. There's a hidden intelligence in our pain if we have the courage to listen. Every wound points to something unlived. Every heartbreak is a mirror of our attachment to illusion. Every loss is an initiation into impermanence. When you've been broken enough times, you begin to see life was never trying to destroy you. It was sculpting you, not into what you wanted to be, but into what you must become. The philosopher Nietzsche once said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering." But he didn't mean a sentimental justification. He meant something deeper, that meaning is not found after suffering, but through it. That in the heart of pain lies a seed, a potential for transformation that cannot be accessed any other way. Suffering is the soul's forge. It burns away what's inessential so that the eternal can emerge, luminous and bare. We think of healing as returning to who we were before the pain, but the truth is, you will never be that person again. Suffering doesn't restore, it rebirths. The caterpillar doesn't heal from being a caterpillar, it liquefies. Its old form dies so that flight can be born. That's the alchemy of hard times. Destruction as the prelude to metamorphosis. So when everything in you wants to escape the darkness, remember, you are not being buried, you are being planted. The soil is dark, but it's also alive. There's an old mystical idea that the universe evolves through tension, the friction between opposites, light and dark, joy and sorrow, creation and decay. Our suffering participates in that same cosmic dance. It's how consciousness expands. When you endure something you thought you never could, your awareness widens. When you grieve something you loved deeply, your capacity for compassion deepens. When you lose control, you learn to trust the mystery that moves through all things. The alchemy isn't in avoiding the fire, it's in surrendering to it without losing awareness. When you allow pain to refine you instead of define you, it becomes wisdom. And wisdom, unlike comfort, can never be taken away. The sages knew that enlightenment was not an escape from pain, but a radical intimacy with it. They wept, they doubted, they fell into silence for years, but they learned to let the fire purify without resistance. That is what makes a mystic, not knowledge, but endurance transformed into grace. Think of the desert hermit, scorched by solitude, who discovers that silence is full of voices. Think of the monk who faces despair until despair becomes prayer. Think of the ordinary person, maybe you, who has lost something precious and still chooses to stay open to life. That is the true miracle, to stay open in a world that keeps closing, to remain tender when everything hardens you, to still believe that meaning is possible when meaning has been shattered. The process of turning suffering into meaning begins with honesty, not with philosophy, not with forced positivity, but with raw truth. It begins when you stop saying, "I'm fine," and start admitting, I am lost. I am afraid. I don't understand why this is happening. That admission is sacred, because it invites the deeper self, the one that knows, to begin its quiet work. You start to see the patterns, how your pain reveals what you've been avoiding, how heartbreak shows the places where you attached your worth, how loss exposes the illusion that life could ever be held still. Slowly, you begin to stop fighting reality. And in that surrender, something astonishing happens. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes radiant with insight. Suffering opens the heart's eyes. It teaches empathy, humility, patience, depth. It softens the arrogance of certainty. It humbles the mind's endless chatter and teaches the silence that wisdom requires. Every person you meet carries invisible battles. To know your own suffering is to see theirs. And that recognition, I too have been broken, is what dissolves the illusion of separation. That's why mystics say, the wound is where the light enters, because through it, we become transparent to something larger than the self. We start living not from our egos, but from the pulse of something sacred. There is an ancient rhythm to all transformation: descent, dissolution, revelation, rebirth. Like seasons, the soul moves through cycles of death and renewal. The descent feels like abandonment. The dissolution feels like madness. But the revelation arrives softly, when you least expect it. One morning, you wake and notice that the ache has changed texture. It's still there, but it's speaking differently now. It's become your teacher. You start to recognize that every hardship was a conversation with the divine, coded in pain because that's the only language the ego listens to. And as you listen, you realize meaning was never lost. It was simply hidden beneath your resistance. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is endure, not heroically, not dramatically, just quietly, to let time and truth do their slow, invisible work. The seed doesn't bloom by tearing open the soil. It waits, softens, dissolves, and only when the time is right does it reach for light. You are the same. Every hard time is an underground season, a gestation of wisdom you cannot yet articulate. Trust that it's doing something essential. Meaning is not something you find like a lost object. It's something you create through how you respond. When you stop asking, why me, and start asking, what is this asking of me? You shift from victim to alchemist, from passive sufferer to active participant in your evolution. You learn to transmute pain into insight, fear into courage, despair into surrender. Each emotion becomes raw material for transformation. That's the alchemy of the soul. Nothing wasted, everything used. The mystics say the divine hides in opposites, that the deepest darkness is the closest veil to light, and perhaps that's the secret. We must go down to find up, we must lose to truly see, we must die to truly live. In the end, suffering teaches us love. Not the sentimental love that depends on things going right, but the fierce love that remains when everything goes wrong. It's the love that watches the self crumble and still whispers, even now, you are whole. When we emerge from hard times, we don't come back with answers. We come back with presence, a softness, a grounded knowing that life is both fragile and infinite. We begin to see beauty not as perfection, but as persistence, not as something pretty, but as something true. And maybe that's the gift hidden inside suffering. It returns us to what's real. If you look closely, the people who carry a quiet peace are rarely the ones who've had easy lives. They're the ones who've met despair face to face and didn't turn away. They've seen the bottom, and in that depth, they found the ground that never moves. That's why their presence feels healing, because they radiate something earned. They've turned their wounds into wisdom. They've become living testaments to the alchemy of hard times. You can feel it in their silence, in their patience, in the way they listen without trying to fix you, because they know pain is not a problem to solve, but a mystery to live. And when you understand that, truly understand it, suffering no longer feels meaningless. It becomes part of the sacred choreography of becoming. Every fall, every loss, every ending is a movement toward integration. The self is refined through friction. The soul learns to sing through its scars. Maybe the universe uses suffering not to punish, but to polish, to make us transparent to its light, to strip away everything false until only love remains. Because love, in its purest form, is not pleasure. It's presence. It's the willingness to meet whatever arises with openness, even pain. That's the divine alchemy, to feel everything, resist nothing, and let each experience reveal the wholeness that was always here. One day, perhaps years from now, you'll look back on what you're going through and realize it changed you in ways that comfort never could. You'll see how it deepened your empathy, sharpened your perception, humbled your pride, softened your heart. You'll see how it stripped away illusions until you could finally touch the real, and you might even whisper with quiet gratitude, "I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I'm grateful it happened to me." Because through the fire, you discovered your essence, and that essence, unshakable, luminous, compassionate, is who you truly are. This is the alchemy of hard times, to suffer into meaning, to descend into darkness and return with light, to become, not perfect, but whole. So if you are walking through pain right now, don't rush to escape it. Don't numb it. Don't explain it away. Sit with it. Listen to it. Let it do its sacred work. You are not being punished. You are being initiated into deeper love, deeper presence, deeper truth. The soul doesn't grow by avoiding the fire. It grows by becoming the fire and realizing it was light all along.